high school was 1 mile from the beach.
Sicilian Inn was where everyone hung out.
Hammond's hot dogs, the best in the world. High school class of 77 was definitely
my first rock concert was the Hammond Civic Center.
You can't be from Miller Beach if you don't know what the BAB is.
And now, broadcasting to Miller Beach and around the world. You're listening to the Miller Beach Podcast with Word, class of 77 grad, Michael Joyner.
So I woke up in the middle of the night, as I usually do on Saturday, and I still had not decided what I wanted to do for a theme for episode number 7. I was thinking about going into the blizzard of 67 and 79 and comparing that, telling stories. I was going to maybe talk about some Miller Beach tragedies that many of us are familiar with, the Brenda Banaski, Sicilian Inn. And I thought, well, maybe I'll finally start the segments on music from the 70s and 80s. I was going to do a segment on the greatest local bands and music that our kids need to listen to, bands that our kids need to know. And as I was putting all this thought and time into it, I realized I think it's time to just make this my last podcast for several reasons. You see, as much as I thoroughly enjoy telling stories and interviewing people about growing up in Miller Beach, Etna in the 70s and 80s, there's some great stories. I still listen to it. Sometimes I'll fast forward to my favorite Jeff Trathan story. I'll make my kids listen to it because I want them to know about their dad, and they love it, actually. But because of the fact that this is pretty much the only podcast that I know of probably in the world that is just regional. It's focused on a small region. And because of that, I can't really expect this to be the financial success a podcast needs to be for me to continue. I actually was writing everything down last week, and I'm putting like a good 20 hours into each podcast. And that may not seem like a lot, but it is when you need to be finding work. As I may have mentioned before, my industry, the entertainment industry, suffered probably more than any other during COVID. As a comedian, all of my gigs were canceled, not just because they watched my video and thought I wasn't funny. All my friends, even my buddy Larry the Cable Guy, as you know, I'm signed to his record label. Larry the Cable Guy, as famous as he is, everything was canceled for over a year. No more comedy stages, no more. As a matter of fact, as an actor, I couldn't work because all the productions just stopped. So because of all that, I need to be focused on work that at least has the potential to get my name back out there nationally and not just in such a small region as Northwest Indiana. That's reason number one. I haven't been able to find any advertisers. I haven't even had time to really seek them out, to be honest. And even if I had, folks, I'm just not getting enough people who want to be on the podcast or listening to the podcast that you really need to be able to tell advertisers, yeah, this will be beneficial to you. It has been a blast. I'll tell you that. It's been a fantastic time. I'm not mad in any way or disappointed in anyone about that. We actually did better at our beginning, according to what I understand podcasts do. You could sometimes do a podcast for a year and get hardly any listeners. But I'm at 150, 200, 300 a week, and that's just not enough, or per podcast. So, and as a comedian and actor, it's never something, it's just not something I have time for right now. Now, every single interview has been a total blast, but most podcasts are designed, let's be honest, to interview people who at least have some experience speaking in public, which is probably why folks are not responding the way I'd like them to be on the podcast, especially now that it's on video. A lot of folks don't want to be on video. Unless you're a speaker, it's not that fun, okay? So I don't blame anybody. I don't blame folks for not knocking down my door saying, yeah, let me be on your podcast. So I'm going to start 2 more podcasts. Truth Bomb Comedy, which I'm still outlining that. Going to be making fun of the latest news and stuff like that and doing pranks and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'll have some of my friends on that. And then Comedian's Guide to the Bible, which will be kind of a weekly Bible study with humor. Okay, there's a lot of funny stuff in the Bible, especially when you think the way I do. Okay, So that's pretty much what I'm going to do. I appreciate every single person who was on my show. Jeff Trathan, I know he did not want to be on this show, but he did because he's my best buddy. Natalie, Mundy, all the folks who were on the show really probably didn't want to be on it, but they did because they're my friends, and I appreciated it, okay? Here's the thing. I may pick it back up once I start working again, and I feel there's more Miller Beach stories to be talked about and joked about and stories that we can share and reshare with each other. I may bring it back, but for now, 7 episodes. I'll keep it online. If you want to listen to it or download it, please do. I can't promise you I'll keep it on there forever, so download it as soon as you can if you want to hear the crazy stuff that me and my buddies remember growing up in Etna and Miller in the 70s and 80s. We had a good run. So I'm going to spend this last podcast. Here's what I'm going to do. I wanted to do something. So what I'm going to do is name miscellaneous stuff to start out with that affected me when I went toward high school. Maybe it'll trigger a fun memory for you when I grew up in Miller Beach. Yeah, I had guns pulled on me. If you listen to the past podcast, I learned to smoke cigarettes and other things. I experienced underage drinking, like so many of us, but I still love that place. I had my heart broken there quite a few times. I may have broke a few hearts. I don't know. But I almost had my butt kicked by the leaders of a motorcycle club. And I made so many bad choices. I partied way too much, but in spite of all that, and perhaps because of the fact that I finally did get on the right road, all thanks to God, like so many of you, I can look back now and fondly say, man, weren't those some good times? Weren't those some good times? Stuff like the king and queen formal dances where the girls ask the boys, or the winter snowball where the boys ask the girls to be their date. I think I have that right. Could be backwards. How about that wonderful work cafeteria where we laughed and ate our food and hoped the boy or girl we had a crush on would sit next to us, and all the crazy things that happened in that cafeteria, the conversations, the trooper football games with their bright lights, marching band, beautiful, energetic cheerleaders, always filled with excitement. We pulled up to the parking lot, me and my 1970 Maverick, not knowing which of our friends would be there or where the party or kegger would be afterwards. Speaking of the many drinking parties on the corner of Wells Street parking lot. Oh my gosh, so many memories. Bonfires, beach parties, bonfire beach parties. Sicilian Inn. Friend, I hope you were around when there was a Sicilian Inn, because those are the best memories. The BAB, whether you grew up in the 60s or even 50s, all the way to the 80s, you know what the BAB is. If not, ask somebody. Concerts by the biggest name bands at the Hammond Civic Center, Amphitheater in Chicago, or Soldier Field. All of this set to the background of the greatest music era in the history of the world, the 70s and 80s. Which brings me to our final theme for our final episode, the music of 70s and 80s Miller Beach. Oh, before I get to that, the movie I think that best illustrates our experience, if you haven't seen it already, Dazed and Confused. Check it out. Here's the thing. This is why I'm going to end with music, because I really regret that I was unable to keep my promise of doing a series on music of our era. I was going to have guests, friends from Jeff and Mike Gajardo, because we were in bands together and we talk a lot about music. So to help make up for that, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to name the top rock, pop songs, the top love songs, and the top 10 Motown. Oh, Motown, folks. Motown, man, there's nothing greater. Every doggone hit on Motown brings back Miller Beach for me. These are songs that our kids need to know about, okay? Now, I'm not going to include any Beatles. Every song by the Beatles are hits. Every one of the Beatles songs can be a hit today, number one hit, and our kids already know about them. And if their kids don't, you raised them wrong, is all I can say. Okay, same with songs like Rocket Man and all the Rolling Stones. I'm not going to name those songs. I'm going to name some songs that I think our kids need to know because they may not even know they exist. Okay? Now, real music lovers have discovered these songs and they're familiar. Okay. But the songs I'm about to name can easily get lost in the shuffle. So I'm going to do my little part to keep them alive. And then I'm going to end with a funny story, true story, as I always do. You're going to love this one. Here we go. Rock songs that, for me, always bring me back to Miller Beach, 70s and 80s, especially the 70s, and also just break my heart when I think that some kids these days may not ever hear about these songs. Here we go. Ventura Highway. Stealing, and Easy Livin' by Uriah Heep. Reelin' in the Years, Steely Dan. Oh my gosh. Aqualung, Jethro Tull. Stairway to Heaven, hopefully they've all heard of that, but I had to include it. Bohemian Rhapsody, thanks to the movie about Queen. I think a lot of people, youngsters these days, know about Queen. Smoke on the Water, Deep Purple. Strange Magic, Electric Light Orchestra, folks. Oh, man. I had to make sure my recorder's still on. Strange Magic, Electric Light Orchestra. Stop this podcast and listen to it. Who is calling me right now? I kick somebody's butt. Dream On. If you're in the class of 77, that was our song, Dream On. And the number one song for me, rock song, that, folks, if you've not heard this song, you need to listen to it. It fits perfectly the memories of Miller Beach, what this Miller Beach podcast has been about. It's by Marmalade, Reflections of My Life. Look up on Spotify, Reflections of My Life by Marmalade. One of the most beautiful songs ever written, and so many people aren't even aware of it. Okay, let's go to Motown. Ain't Too Proud to Beg. Oh, man. Marvin Gaye, What's Going On? Jimmy Mack, The Tears of a Clown, Smokey Robinson. Papa Was a Rolling Stone. Just My Imagination. Ball of Confusion. We Are Family. Ain't No Mountain High Enough. I sing that to my wife and she sings it to me. And here's the number one song for me because my mom used to sing this song to me when we were so poor, living in Gary, Indiana. And it came true. Ooh, Ooh, Child by the Spinners, I believe. Things Are Gonna Get Easier. They did, Mom. Thank you. Here we go. Here we go. Where are we at? Love songs. The best love songs of the 70s and early 80s. Laughter in the Rain, Neil Sedaka. This band, Badfinger, look up their documentary. It's tragic. What a great band. Badfinger's Baby Blue, Day After Day, and No Matter What. I'm Not in Love by 10cc. Remember that one? That one brings me back to my buddy Paul Orner's basement. He had that album. Without You, Harry Nilsson. Look that up. Carole King, It's Too Late. Man, folks, best era of music. There'll never be another like it, and that's when we grew up. I have to keep checking my recording, make sure it doesn't go off. Last one. Oh, well, you know what this is? These are bands that I hope you will introduce your kids to. Okay? Introduce your kids to Jethro Tull, folks, if you care about them. Rick Springfield, Devo, Yes, King Crimson, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, excuse me, REO Speedwagon, Leonard Skinner, Cheap Trick. Out of Chicago, you got to introduce Cheap Trick out of Chicago. Peter Frampton, saw him in concert. Foreigner, Journey, Thin Lizzy, The Boys Are Back in Town. Boston, Bad Company. We didn't realize it then. But especially compared to today, we had the best music in the history of the world. Folks, here's the thing. I created a Spotify. If you're not on Spotify, get on Spotify. I created a playlist just for us. Michael Joyner's Miller Beach Fave Songs. Look it up. I'll be adding stuff daily, weekly, as I get inspired, okay? It'll bring you back. If it brings you back like it did me, you're going to love it. It includes all the songs I just named, plus many more. Okay, final stories of the decade or whatever, I guess. I was only going to tell one story, and I'm going to tell that story, but I called my buddy Jeff Trathan right before I did this tonight, and as always, he triggered something. He reminded me of something, and since we're talking about music of the 70s and 80s, let me tell you a funny story that has to do with that. And in hindsight, it's funny. At the time, it was only funny to Jeff, not the person that happened to. You guys remember a guy named Al Holliday? Awesome black African-American brother who was so laid back, just so cool. Al Holliday was just the coolest dude in the world. Al was having a party, and he invited me and Jeff. I believe it was the last party he ever invited us to after this incident. I'm accident prone, folks. I'm accident prone, and I'm probably giving away the punchline here, although it's not a joke. It's a true story. But I'm accident prone. So here's what happened. We're at the party. Jeff's sitting on the couch. Al Holliday is putting on the jams on the record player, putting on the vinyl. He's the DJ at his house party. Great party, if I remember. And I'm sitting on the floor trying to be cool, as I always did, because I watched an Al Pacino movie earlier, and I thought, yeah, I'll be that guy. So I'm trying to talk like Serpico, whatever. Al Holliday shows Jeff his brand new album. It was like a progressive band, maybe King Crimson, I don't know. Jeff looks at it, he's like, yeah, nice. Let's hear it. And I said, hey, can I see that? You know, because I wanted to read, who's who, whatever. He says, sure. He hands it to me. And like an idiot, I turn it upside down to look at something, and the doggone album falls out and cracks. Everything else after that was a blur. I could see Jeff in my peripheral laughing, trying not to laugh because it's funny, but he doesn't want to disrespect Al, who just lost his brand new album. Back then, you couldn't open Spotify like these kids these days. You had to go out and buy that album for good money. I cracked it before he even got a chance to play it at the party. I don't know what to say. Jeff's like, oh, man. Of course, Jeff throws me under the bus. Al, I could tell he's just so disappointed, upset, but he's a laid-back dude. He didn't get mad at me. He said, bro, all right, don't worry about it. But I did. And I almost was able to suppress it until our conversation yesterday. And Jeff put it back in my mind, as he always does. And so now I'll probably go to see the psychiatrist again. Okay, Al, I owe you a doggone album if you're listening. I don't know. I hope Al's still alive. I mean, people our age, we never know. I haven't heard from him lately. I hope he's okay. I really am going to get you a new album. Anyway, or whatever, Spotify. I'll give you my sign in. Okay, here's my ending story, folks. By the way, it's been fun. If I see you at the Wirt reunion, give me a big old hug. Bring one in. Bring it in. Bring it in, baby. Because could be the last time we see each other. If I run into Al Holliday, especially. I'm kidding. I think. Okay. So this really doesn't have to do so much with Miller Beach, except the area and the region. It has something to do with Lakes of the Four Seasons. Remember that area? Back in the late 90s, when I just started, really only been doing comedy less than 7 years, it was my first headlining gig as a comedian at a club night. If you're familiar with comedy, they have the MC who's been doing it a few years, then the feature act, 4 or 5 years, and then the headliner. He's the guy that closes the show. He's the funniest dude in the lineup, supposedly. So this is my first time, and I was excited about it. I invited Jeff and all my Miller area friends, and I had a great Ron Kittle joke I couldn't wait to try. I think it went like this. I ran into Ron Kittle, and he reminded me the reason he's successful is because he didn't go out and party all the time like we all did. And I said, yeah, that's why you didn't score till you started playing baseball. It's just a joke. It's a joke. Hardly a joke. All right. Had some merchandise, so I couldn't wait. Jeff's there, he's with his family and friends. Looks like a great crowd. And sure enough, it is. The feature act had a great show. So I go up. They introduce me after the MC and the feature, and I'm having a killer show at this Cedar Lake Club. First off, the people who ran this place. Now, when I went to high school, Cedar Lake, Lakes of the Four Seasons, am I mixing them up? This was Lakes of the Four Seasons, was known as a high-class place. And I believe it still is kind of. But for some reason, the people running this club were the biggest hillbillies I ever seen. It's like they hired them from Lake Station. Come on, laugh. Maybe New Chicago. But that's okay. No problem so far. I'll work for anybody if you pay me. Back to the story. I'm doing my show. I'm having a good show. It's killing. I'm messing with the audience like I do. And then this lady who is so drunk, drunker than any person I've ever seen, stands up and starts saying stuff to me at the stage, disrupting my show. And so I hit her with a couple of lines, like, hey, I don't go where you work and jump on the bed. Does anybody speak alcoholic? Whatever. And they're laughing, but then she's getting really disruptive. I can't even continue my show. She's yelling and talking, but she's not really being hostile. She's just dumb drunk. Finally, I just slam her. Now, as a comedian, I improvise a lot. You should never interact with the audience because you're angry with them. That's what I did. I think I used the slut word. I take that back. I did use the slut word. I said something like, hey, my agent called me. He's like, hey, you want to do a show in Lakes of the Four Seasons? Yeah, only if some slut stands up and yells during the whole show. Something like that. She still didn't give in. She's laughing at herself. No matter what I said to her, she was so drunk. She just ruined my whole friggin' show. So they finally asked her to sit down, which most decent comedy clubs would have done from the get-go. Afterwards, I'm with my friend Andy Barlog. Did I mention that? Andy, one of my most loyal friends. We worked at the pawn shop in Lake Station for years, became really tight. And Andy came with me, as he always does when I'm in the area. He's a good, loyal friend. He acts as my road manager when he comes with me. So after the show, I said, Andy, will you go ask those people for my check? Because I don't want to talk to them. They may not want to pay me after what I said to that girl. So he says, sure, no problem. He goes down there and gets goes down there to talk to those people, comes back with my check. I said, oh, did you have a hard time getting it? Were they mad? He goes, yeah, they were mad. I said, they were, huh? Because of what I said to that girl? They said, no. They were mad because you made fun of their stage. I made fun of their stage. Now let's back up to the stage joke. It's a joke I've used many times whenever I do a club and the stage looks a little bit, whatever, cheap. So I said, hey, what time does Huck Finn need the stage back? And I acted like I was on a raft. And then they laughed a lot at that. And I said, no, that's some good palate. What that sets you back? Just made fun of it a little bit, then went on with the show. Well, we made that stage. We made that stage. We made it ourselves. What the heck does he think he's doing coming over here making fun of our stage? Nothing about the girl I called names, but I talked about their stage. True story. To this day, they haven't booked me back, which is an answer to prayer. Folks, you've been fantastic. This has been fantastic. It's been fun. Hope to see you at the reunion. A couple of friends at the night before going to meet at, I believe, Quaker Steak and Lube. And Miller Beach, man. Miller Beach. Always in my heart. I know it's always in yours. If you're listening, that's why. And if you hear about me doing some comedy, come show up. Not too drunk, though, okay? And nobody from Lakes of the Four Seasons or Lake Station or New Chicago. I'm kidding. Just bring them all. Bring them all. We'll have fun. I'm Michael Joyner. You've been the best ever. God bless.